Hello, unprofessionals, and welcome to another episode of Unprofessional Development. Today we've got the hosts of the podcast Hands Up. They are awesome. They are funny. They've got good stories. They've got a podcast that might be as good as ours. It's hard to say. There's different tastes for different lists. Anyway, today's episode is brought to you by the letter U. You can put it in color or labor or other words that don't need a U, because that's what our friends from across the pond do. So thank you, letter U, for bringing us that, and enjoy today's episode.
It's okay to be unprofessional. This is your teacher confessional. Real teachers, the stories are real. You're gonna laugh with Tedisco and Millie.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages, welcome to another exciting, super exciting episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tedisco.
And I'm Millie. And we've got...
and we have two really special guests. I'm very excited about it.
We do have two guests from across the pond, as we said. So we've got Mr. Firth and Mr. Tomlinson, otherwise known probably... For some reason, you get called Mark more often, and Mr. Firth gets called Mr. Firth, so whatever it is with that. But...
I think it's an age thing.
I don't know why the young guy gets the more old name, and the old guy gets the young name, but that's the way it goes. But anyway, and I'll say this out loud, and we're not going to do
it. Welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah,
we're
glad
very
to have
well.
you here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And so they're from the United Kingdom, Great Britain, whatever other, England, whatever names. You know, you guys have so many different names for your country, it's confusing. But so when I first got to know you guys by listening to your podcast, and I was telling Tedisco that I was reaching out to you, I had this horrible idea that when we did it together, that we would do really bad British accents the whole time, and you guys would do really bad American accents the whole time.
I said no.
I mean...
Yeah, that'd be funny for about 30 seconds, but...
I'm expecting a Dick Van Dyke impression.
Yes, there you go. We can do a little Dick Van Dyke cockney. No, it'd be mostly Monty Python, a little bit of like, oh, there's a penguin on the telly! He's gonna blow up!
you know, I think the game today is drink every time Mealy does something stereotypically British.
Yes.
And then, can Jordan ring his bell?
Yes.
So, well, a little bit of context for that, because on the newest episode, I've recently bought this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's beautiful.
So every time,
for the 70s
every time
references.
Mark, makes a reference that I don't understand, I'll ring the bell, so I can bring that out for you guys if you want. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if you understand this reference. I figured you guys would just do your Benny Hill impression of Americans when he would always do the cowboy version of Americans back in that time. So he would his American accent was
I'm pretty sure
fantastic.
that's what Americans are like.
Jordan, you should be ringing your bell for the 70s reference, Benny Hill.
No, do you know what? No, but it is but I understand that one, so I can let that one slide. It's fine.
I think I'm pretty sure everybody just looks at America and like watches documentaries like Tiger King and just goes, "That's what the whole place is."
Yeah,
yes,
and it is half right.
Yeah, you all own about 30 tigers.
Yeah,
it's
yes, and 50 guns.
Yes,
yes. All my guns have tiger names, and all my tigers have gun names.
Oh,
but it's so great to have you guys out. So
it really is.
Your podcast, Hands Up, absolutely wonderful, hilarious, far more organized than ours.
Yes. But one of the things before we
I guess
go ahead, Tedisco.
I was just going to jump right in with our first big question, unless you got something, Millie.
Well, I just kind of want to mention that one of the things that I really like about it is, and that's kind of what we're doing, like slightly different flavors, but we kind of got the same mindset, I think, is there's so many teacher education podcasts out there that are just so educational. You know, where it's
educational,
like,
yeah, fine. That's what, yeah.
yeah, where it's just like, oh my goodness, like, people that are, and there's a place for everything. There's a place for the news and there's a place for the comedy. But you listen to some of them, you're like, oh my goodness, that is like, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to something that makes me laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I think when you look at the education category on iTunes or wherever you're getting your podcast from, I think they are a lot of CPD or professional development, and I know that's obviously the where you've got your name from. I can't stress enough how little you will learn by listening to our podcast. You won't learn a thing, and that's a promise. That's a promise.
Yeah.
Educational podcasts are to podcasts what educational games are to games.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so the question that Tedisco's referencing is that we have here on the little show doc. So we are that organized. We do have a show doc. But is how did you guys decide to podcast? And you guys seem to be a little bit of an odd couple. We already referenced the old guy and the young guy and references. So whose idea was it first? And how did you decide to bring in the other one?
Oh, I think Jordan and I had started listening to a number of podcasts, and we were talking about podcasts in the staff room one day, and then I said, we should start our own podcast, because I think Jordan and I like to think that we're the class clowns in the school. And so I mentioned maybe us starting a podcast, and then that night we both went home and we were messaging each other with some ideas for a podcast, and it kind of grew out of there, really, just sounding out a few ideas, and then we took it from there. Okay.
I think I don't know if you've maybe felt this as well. There's something quite vain about having a conversation in a staff room and then going, do you know what? Everyone should be listening to this. I'm going to put that out there for everyone to hear.
But the flip side of that is, and that's what we're trying to do here, is when you listen to those boring education podcasts that we're saying, like, no, that's not what it should be. It should be what's happening in the break room where we're making these jokes and we're actually talking about the goofy stuff that happened. And without getting like super deep, you do occasionally go, oh, well, that's an idea I can use, or I hadn't thought of that. And so other times it's like, oh, let me tell you about the time, this kid threw up in my desk drawer or whatever the,
I guess the fact that most of our colleagues switch off when Jordan and I start talking in the staff room should have starting a podcast. We didn't let that put us off.
We are the only two male teachers in our school. And, we've got a staff of, you must be pushing high 60s, and there are only 4 male members of staff in school because we're lower elementary, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we call it elementary.
It's a lot rarer there. So I think we were kind of, I don't know. I had no choice but to talk to him, really.
We gravitated towards each other.
Yeah. That kind of keeps you out of trouble, maybe hopefully with some other things if you're just hanging out with the other guy teacher. So
I don't know. You keep getting me into trouble, though.
That's true. I picked the wrong one to disco. But yeah, I don't think you guys probably can make more. Like the women don't appreciate the fart jokes as much as as much as the guys do.
I think our humour's a little bit more sophisticated.
Oh.
I think we're more Monty Python than Benny Hill.
Okay. All right. So something, and we don't want to break down every aspect of, we want to get into some aspects that are different, but I don't want this to be a dissertation on the British educational system versus the American one. But I think one of the interesting things when I listen to it, and I've talked to one of my British colleagues that that Tedisco and I work with, is explain what Ofsted, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, is, and what that means, and just give us your little take on that and any good Ofsted stories you have.
I don't know what it is, but it sounds delicious.
It's not.
It's not as good as it sounds, I promise. So Ofsted is essentially how schools and teachers are judged on how good they are. And it's not based on how you move these children on emotionally or spiritually or how you build them, how you build them as human beings. It's basically a 15-minute window where they'll come in and watch you, and basically it's just a waste man who can't teach comes in and judges you themselves. So, familiar with the term waste man over in?
Is that like a trash man?
No, someone who's not really
garbage
doing
man.
anything with their lives. They've kind of wasted. So people who maybe haven't taught in
like a derelict or a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah.
Someone from New Jersey.
Yes. I guess.
Got it.
Yeah. So basically, it's people, I think they will have used to have been heads a long time ago, but they've been out of the game for a long time. They'll come in and tell you if they think you're good enough. And people don't enjoy them. You get given a day's notice for when they're going to come in, and it's panic stations basically, because your entire school is judged in that one day. Your whole reputation in terms of community and nationwide, it's all going to land on what they see during that day. So there's a lot of pressure when
they don't know you from any other. They don't know you at all from they have no other prior relationship to you at all either.
No, not at all. So there'll be one Ofsted inspector that might do, the odd district, but they go up and down the country. And there's always been a lot of stuff about their consistency, because, different inspectors might be looking for different things. And it is tough. It's hard to go into any school, into any building, any workplace and get a really good vibe of how that school is run in a day. It just panics people, because it's your entire reputation. Parents, if you get an Ofsted rating of outstanding, it can drive house prices up in that area. Right. That's how big of a deal it is.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
And they come just once a year, or every other year, or how often do they come?
We were Ofsted last time this school was Ofsted was about 11 years ago. Our school,
long time ago. Yeah.
Oh wow.
We were judged to be outstanding, and then kind of through the changes in government, the Ofsted changed, and then they decided to leave outstanding schools well alone. But we've just been recently Ofsted. We had a 1-day deep dive into our geography curriculum.
So if you get the Ofsted of outstanding, then you happen to hit it out the park one day, you can just suck for 10 more years as a school.
Yeah. That's the irony, really. I think as long as your results are kind of matching that grading of outstanding. But 12 years ago, Mark or I were at that school, so that's probably brought it down a notch. It's a whole different cohort of staff, of children, of leadership. It is crazy that we've not been properly Ofsted in that time. Whereas if you're at the bottom end of that scale, where if your requires improvement, they will come a lot more frequently to you.
Yeah.
Now that sounds to me like that just opens up a really big chance for not just for falling into bias and for labeling. And so are there any sort of supports in place to make sure they don't label schools in a lower socioeconomic status as being worse or anything like that? Or
yeah, they do try and take into account what they say. They do try and take into account if it's from a more deprived area. If we've got a lot of sort of terminology for pupils that might need that extra support, so they do claim to take all that into account. But then there's no surprise when the majority of requires improvement schools are the ones in those deprived areas.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
So, in addition to that, because we get observed, we just did a recording with an administrator prior to talking to you guys. We get observed by administrators. I think they call them head teachers, and I don't know what else names you guys have, but your principals we call them principals, they call them head teachers there.
Yeah.
But do they come and observe you as well? Is that part of the process? Do they ever come in your room and observe you, or does that not really happen either?
There's a system set up where we're supposed to be observed. What is it, John? Once every term, I think. We do a peer observation where a fellow teacher from our year group comes to observe us, and then there's a member of this leadership team who will come to observe us as well.
Okay.
I mean, they're quite good. It depends on your leadership team, really. Sometimes those can be seen as being you're really under scrutiny. I think our school are actually quite good at making you feel relatively laid back about it, and it's a process that they need to go through for their quality control, and we totally understand that. So I think we're quite lucky in that sense. But, you see a lot, especially, as we've become more out there on Twitter, and you follow a lot of other educators.
Mm-hmm.
Some leadership setups seem horrifying, like genuinely terrifying. Some of the things that they have to go through. So I think we are quite lucky in that sense that it is seen as more of a supportive tool rather than a proper scrutiny.
Okay,
good. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be on the same side, I think.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So we want to get a little hands-up flavor in here, okay? So I don't know if you've prepared this or not, or if you could just do this off the top of your head. So Mr. Firth, I want you like your little top 5. So what are the top 5 teacher buzzwords that make you roll your eyes when you hear someone mentioning them?
I've got a couple, and I want to add a little bit of a disclaimer before I do these. In that, one, buzzwords are aplenty in education, and I remember being a newly qualified teacher, and for probably the first year of my career, just sat in staff meetings thinking, what are you talking about? What does that word mean? What is that abbreviation? I've got no idea. And I will also add that I'm one of the biggest cynics out there. And I think it's really easy to be cynical of all these buzzwords when you hear them. I understand. I think all of them are well-meaning. I do. I think they're all well-intentioned, these buzzwords. My problem with them becomes when they become a bit of a fad, and people focus on it for 1 year, and then it's something else the year after. So I've got 5, which I'll go through. My first one being deep.
We're not going to do the countdown though. I don't have little countdown sound bites for you.
I can do this.
Okay.
5.
Yes.
Number 5 is deep dive. Now, deep dive is the terminology that Ofsted use when they're going to look at a particular subject in your school. That is a brand new word, a brand new terminology. Someone like Mark, who's got the filthiest mind out there, probably struggles to deal with hearing that word on a daily basis. Deep dive.
I'm glad I'm sat down.
Exactly. But I just think it's a term that is it's in fashion now, big time. It's really out there in the UK education system, and give it 5 years, everyone will have forgotten about it. It's just another way. They're just having a look at your curriculum in a certain way. That's all a deep dive is.
Right.
My next one is non-negotiables. Now, we've spoken about this on the podcast before, and I don't know if it's something that you guys maybe have over there, but if you Google the word non-negotiable into Google, obviously, the only things that come up on the UK site is it's just primary schools. It's terminology that is only used in primary schools, and primary schools have these massive documents of non-negotiables, and my problem with that is the terminology of non-negotiable. Like you have to do it, and I kind of think the rebel in me thinks, well, what if I don't? Like, what are you going to do about it? But some of them, we've looked at one before, haven't we, Mark? And it had, was it 60 something non-negotiables, and they were, they were outrageous. The things that you had to do in every single lesson, every single aspect of school life, and some of them just weren't realistic, and non-negotiable for these year 1 children are that they must be able to use capital letters, full stops, and conjunctions in all their writing. It's like, but what about the child that's got SEN? We've got some extra additional needs and they can't do that. And we'll go, oh, well, obviously apart from them. But at that point, it doesn't become non-negotiable, does it? We're negotiating here. I don't like that. That annoys me. The next one, and I'm interested to know if you've had this.
Ding, ding. States. Hit the bell. Hit the bell.
3 is VAC, VAK, visual, audio, kinesthetic learning. You never.
Oh, okay. Yes. We don't use that. I've never heard VAC, but we've talked about at one point I think there were 5 types of learners or something like that. I can't remember. There's always, they've told us there's these many different types of learners. Yes. And kinesthetic and audio and visual, but there's other ones too. I can't remember what they are, but go ahead.
Bashful, grumpy, dopey, doc, Ringo. Yeah.
So total nonsense, basically. There was a time where that was a massive fad, and you will have had to, in your planning, said what you were going to do for all these different types of learners, and it's kind of been. I think people and this can be another one. People throw the word research out there a lot, and well, this has been researched, and it's like, yeah, but you can manipulate research to have the benefit that you want it to.
4 to 5 doctors smoke Camel cigarettes.
Right.
Yeah. I hated that one when it came out because I just thought it was utter nonsense.
Yes.
Utter nonsense.
When I had a school that was pushing that too, and my feedback was, well, hold on. If I have a kid who's a kinesthetic learner, they're still going to have to learn visually and audibly for everything else in life. So, I mean,
la 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 la. No, I'm not an audio learner. I'm not listening.
Yeah, I'm glad you're an audio learner. You're still going to have to drive a car. So maybe try learning every kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and back to deep dive. I was going to say, excuse me.
Yeah.
Back to deep dive. So does that mean I should no longer say unpack? Because that was a one for a while, and I feel like deep dive might be replacing unpack. We used to unpack this thing and unpack that thing, and now we do a deep dive instead. Don't unpack it. Let's get in. It's much better than taking it all out is to get in.
Yeah, it can be quite a pompous way of talking, really. Like, let's deep dive into this, and I'm just not about that. I'm not about those kind of corporate buzzwords. Yeah.
Okay.
My last one, and I'm pretty
ding.
sure you have. I think pretty sure you have had this one in the States, because we use something called Class Dojo to reward behavior and as a parent interaction tool thing. And they've done a lot of work with Harvard, I think, on growth mindset. Heard of that?
Oh, yes.
What? Say it one more time.
Growth mindset.
Growth mindset. Oh God. Yes.
Everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Everywhere. It was for us for, again, about a year, and then everyone just kind of forgot about it. And I think, great in theory, and I don't mind it. I think the intention is there, help children to learn how they learn and how to sort of overcome those barriers. But again, it was here for a year, and now it's gone. And that's what I mean by, I'm not skeptical to the ideas. I just hate the fads. I hate how they come around. And give it another 5 years' time, we'll all be talking about growth mindset again in the UK, and we'll have forgotten that we ever had a big push on it 5 years ago.
What we should do is we should circle back to it.
Do a deep dive into these terms.
I don't know if that was 5, but yeah, that's pretty much.
That's fine. Oh, that's good. That's good.
I think that the death of those words always comes whenever politicians start picking them up. And it's using them sort of, I support education. I want more of this, whatever the buzzword is, to get people on their side. Well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Now, I've never participated, but maybe you guys have. We have, lots of staff meetings. I'm sure you guys have staff meetings as well. And sometimes people make buzzword bingo. Have you ever heard of that? So they make.
I've heard of it. We've not dared do it yet, have we, Mark? I don't think it's been taken in a very good way if we were to start doing that in the corner.
Yeah, I'm a little scared myself to actually break.
It's a lot easier
to break out the card. Yes, you could do it on virtual meetings. That would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now we wanted another little taste of hands up. Our boy Mark, he is known for his fascination with fictional teachers, which we actually had an episode where we discussed our favorite fictional teachers. So if you get a chance, Mark.
I did hear that. I can't remember who it was now. Did someone never heard of Matilda? I think I listened to it a while
ago. It was me. I'd never heard of Matilda. Yes.
I also said she was very American because I was basing off entirely from the movie and not the literature. So,
I know. I know the song "Waltzing Matilda," the Australian national anthem. I could sing that for you. Okay. Is that related at all?
No, I think Danny DeVito was in that movie, like an American hero, Danny DeVito.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Well, sorry. Ring the bell for me not knowing that reference, I guess.
That poor bell.
I get my money's worth at least. My £3.99 worth every penny.
So Mark, by the way, also their episode, I don't know which number it is or what it's called, but the first episode where you discussed teachers, where it seems like we were driving down this road and then Mark said, hold on, I'm going to steer us over into these rocks. And it's like, oh, these bumps are kind of funny. Oh, hold on. There's a tree. I'm going to drive straight into the tree and fire's going to shoot out of the engine compartment now. Like,
I more or less had a breakdown live.
Oh, we will definitely link that episode specifically in our show notes so that people can get a chance to.
Jordan made me redo it for the following week.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, but
instead
I
of your
love the fired up
marriage.
you get though.
But oh my goodness, so funny. But anyway, so I got a couple fictional teacher questions for you, Mark. I don't know if you've seen them on the thing, but so who is your fictional teacher role model? And then also, who is your fictional teacher crush?
Oh, how long have you got for that last one?
The role model is Cameron Diaz in Bad Teacher.
That's your role model?
Yeah.
What? Can you break that down for those of us who don't know?
No, I just fabulous. And I also like Jack Black in School of Rock.
Okay,
that was a good movie.
How he engages the children through the tool of the music of AC/DC and Motorhead.
Yes. Okay.
But in regards to my crush, it's easy. I've got two. So a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I looked a little bit closer at a TV show over here in Britain called Big School. Stars David Walliams from Little Britain. No?
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
And
okay, so Disco knows it.
The head teacher in that school is played by an actress called Frances de la Tour, who in the late 70s was in a famous sitcom called Rising Damp.
Okay.
So when I was about 8 or 9, she was my first ever crush until I found out that Debbie Harry existed. That Debbie Harry was my crush for years and years. And so when I watched Big School, obviously Frances de la Tour is now 40 years older than she was back then in the late 70s, and she still did something for me some 40 years on. So Frances de la Tour as the head teacher in Big School, but also my other fictional teacher crush is Edna Krabappel from The Simpsons.
Thank you.
I think the way she winds Seymour round her little finger is very sexy. And how she uses sarcasm to talk to the children.
Yes.
I think both Jordan and I have both modelled our teaching career on some of that.
Okay. So, to Disco. I think we're on to your questions or whatever.
All right. I got kind of a weird question, guys. This is like a weird sort of thought experiment. Okay, so think like a thought experiment if I said like what would life be like if we all lived in an infomercial, right? So here's my thought experiment. This might go terribly. I don't know. Imagine that you are living the life of a fictional teacher, like a teacher in a TV show. All right. So what do you think would be the pros and cons of being like a fictional teacher in like a television universe?
I've got a good one. Fictional, they always seem to leave like when the bell goes at the end of the day. They always seem to be walking out with the students with maybe just like a rucksack or a satchel. They've not got like the big bags of marking, or they're not, pulling this trolley along with all the work they've got to do. But sometimes they're out of the door before the bell's gone. So yeah, they don't do anything for the stereotype that we just kind of rock in at 9 a.m, leave at 3:30. That would be a massive one for me. I love that.
And those teachers also rock up to class, and the children are already in the class.
Yeah, yeah.
There an
Just
hour
walk
and a
in
half
and start
before
teaching.
start
Quiet.
the day.
Uh-huh. Just
So-
waiting for their lesson.
One of the
waiting for their lesson, yeah.
And one of the cons, though, is you actually never get to finish because apparently you only teach for literally 3 minutes, and then halfway through what you're going to say something,
The bell goes.
the bell goes, and you go, "Don't forget the homework, or we'll have a
Yeah.
test on Tuesday." And then it's all done, and then you spend the rest of your time just outside the classroom, just goofing off. So it's awesome.
But you would
I
get...
think what I would struggle with. Mhm.
Yeah,
No,
and I'm
so
into teacher.
But, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, you would get an apple on your desk every day.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
never
that's a good one.
happens.
Every day.
I think a con would be having to try and teach up these apparently 40-year-old students. I don't like the film Grease. They all look older than me in that
Yes.
film, so I think that'd be a bit weird trying to sort of assert some authority on all these pupils. Channing Tatum, like
Yes.
clearly he's the authority figure in this classroom, not me. So.
Yes. You have something you were going to say
no,
to
he
this,
definitely
Gal?
looks 12.
You had something you wanted to say.
yes. I think what I would definitely struggle with as a fictional teacher is knowing that I would have to have a crush on another teacher. I don't know why that's a trope, but I don't
Yeah.
think there's been one story about like teachers in a building that doesn't involve some sort of like love triangle sexual tension.
Yes.
We
No
have the
comment.
most boring job, like administratively. Like,
That happens in our school.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
Me,
Yes,
Jordan, the caretaker.
Flashback to that episode again. I'm only going to link it once, but oh
no, I married our head teacher, so I kind of was living that fictional school thing. Never left on time at the end of the day, but did
Yeah.
marry the deputy
with no grading.
head. So
yes. So and the other thing is, at some point, if you're a fictional teacher, you have to either break the law or have like a screaming match with the principal in there because you care so much more about the kids than obviously anybody else does, and that always goes well. If you try that in real life and head into the principal's office and start. We're gonna do this no matter what you say.
And then definitely get fired.
we wouldn't dare do it. Our head teacher listens to a lot of our podcasts, so we're always really careful. She'll track us down onto this one. I assure you, she'll find that we've been on this podcast.
Oh,
So no comment.
Okay. Tedisco, did you have anything?
I would get really tired of giving a life-changing speech every week.
Yeah.
I think that would get exhausting.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah, and having to do it for the visual, audio, and kinesthetic learners as well.
So, I guess Tedisco has some questions he wants to also ask about. Let's play the differences between the States and the United Kingdom and how different things go there. So, hit some of those, Tedisco.
Yeah, I'm fascinated about like what teaching is like in England. So I guess my first question is: so one of the big struggles we have here is ELL students, which is English language learners, and so we have a lot of students who are immigrants from like Honduras and Mexico and El Salvador,
Guatemala,
and they struggle. Yeah, and they struggle, learning English. Do you guys have those similar struggles in England? And if so, like what sort of languages do you have coming in?
I think we do. I think the main language is Pakistani. Learn children from Pakistan. So we have lots. I mean, even in our school, my class alone, I think I've got about 10 children who are Muslim, but they all speak perfect English. But when I was doing my teacher training, my second placement school was in quite a deprived area of Huddersfield, and that was 85% Muslim children, and at least six children in a class of 30 needed extra support with their language.
Okay. So you don't have kids come in that don't speak any English at all very often?
Yeah, you did, John, didn't you?
Yeah. So I had a boy from Chile, and he spoke exclusively Spanish.
That's quite a commute.
Yes.
Yeah. But luckily my teaching assistant in the class. She spoke Spanish, so she just did a lot of the translating. Really, they are quite a lot of EAL. We call them English as additional language.
Okay.
There are a lot of specialised schools where they will do an awful lot, and I guess it would be the similar things that you guys do, just in terms of a lot of kind of labelling and symbols around the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have a lot of Pakistani children, a lot from around Europe. So I've had like Bulgarian families, you get Polish families, quite a lot, don't you, from around that side of Europe. But yeah, to be fair, we are quite lucky in that they do speak quite good English, and quite often, and we only teach up to 5 to 7 year olds in our school. And quite often you get children that will translate between you and the parent, because they can speak English because they've been exposed to it in school 5 days a week for 8 hours a day, and the parents don't speak English. So you do get that sometimes as well.
Okay. So I guess that kind of leads into your other question, right, Tedisco? So you only have ages 5 to 7. So we here, now it varies, but in general, it's mostly K through 5, which is, so kindergarten 5 to like 5th grader, which is about 10 years old. And then we have something called middle school, which is, their 6th, 7th, and 8th year, which is basically, the tweens. And then high school is 4 years, where there's 4 years of that. There are some schools occasionally that are K through 8. And there are occasionally some K through 12 that have the entire, school in there. But 90%, but maybe even higher than that, is kind of broken down into those 3 schools. So kind of give us a little bit of information on how, you've got primary school and secondary school, but and third-ary school and fourth-ary school?
Incorrect.
How's that work?
We have, so your most typical, like we're just an infant school, but your most typical would be ages 5 to 11 or 4 to 11. So we have reception, which I guess is kindergarten right through to year 6. And then high school is years 7 to 11. And they would be there right up until they would go to what we call college, but your college is our university, isn't it? So we
call them both.
Yeah. So quite often schools have their own colleges attached now. So sometimes you are in that high school right from year 7, from when you are 11 years old, right until you're 18, you might go to university. That tends to be the most typical, doesn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. I just found out, and I didn't know this, but apparently, usually in America, we label things colleges when they reference undergraduates, and then our universities are more of graduate and doctorate classes, which is a thing I did not know.
Well, also, sometimes I went to a prep school, which was I was in when I was what was a high school, but it was part of one. It was called a college high school, which was really confusing. But then the college got their university status, and I think this is my understanding. I'm not 100% sure. In order to be a university, you have to have a lot more kinds of colleges. So you have to have a lot more subjects that you can get and degrees that you can get in, because then you're a university, because apparently you've got the whole universe of things you can learn there, as opposed to a college where you maybe just focus on just medicine or English or law or whatever it is. So I don't know how hard and fast those things
are. I learned something today.
Yeah, the more you know.
What did we say at the start? It's not, we have learned something after all.
Yes.
So there we go, a little proper professional development there.
Yes. So
handshakes.
Speaking
handshakes
of which,
all around.
That has been confusing to me, because when you guys call yourself a year 1 teacher, when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, that's his first year teaching. And that's a kind of confusing translation thing, another thing, because when I hear year 1 teacher, I'm like, oh, it's my year 1 teaching. Okay. Not I teach year 1 kids, as opposed to, we call them first graders. So you would say first grade teacher. So there is sometimes those little, we speak the same language. There's not everything is exactly the same. Do you guys have any crazy stories that somebody, did something crazy in your classroom that you wanted to kind of tell us about?
Well, we've got, so on the on the document that you gave me before, you've given me the start of a sentence, and it says, "I couldn't believe that a kid
Yes. ...
So we had a little think about that.
Yes.
I kind of think that for me, doing our podcast and we get a lot of stories from a lot of different teachers. I feel like my teaching career has been pretty mild now compared to some of the stuff that we get sent in. So personally, I can't believe it, a kid. I'm bearing in mind we had lower down school. But I remember in my first year of teaching, my year one of teaching, I had a child who was he was like holding his stomach quite a lot and kind of just looking a bit shifty and kind of had a bit of an intense face about him. And I kind of say, "Are you all right?" And he was like, "Yeah, fine." "Are you sure? Do you need to go to the toilet?" He's like, No, I'm good, I'm fine. And and I was all right, fine. And I sent them all off the carpet to go away and do their work. And he kind of sheepishly stood up, sort of last. And as he was walking off to his table, he just kind of gave his leg a shake, and just down the trouser leg, just out popped this little poo on the carpet. And he just kept walking, just kept going, bold as brass, as if that wasn't me. I know what you're talking about. I kind of had to call him back, and there's some. And then, have you just? Is this yours? And he just went, "No." But it is.
Can you prove it?
So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of had this exchange, both stood up poo on the floor, about whose it was. It was his, and him just blindly denying it. So, that's always fun. What you teach lower down school. A good one that we had sent in to us. Am I allowed to swear on this?
We can bleep it out if we have to. Or is it going to ruin the story?
You would have to.
But I need to hear it now.
All right.
We can.
So you can feel my pain here because I have to bleep out all sorts of what.
Yes.
Of what
Mark's been good.
Yeah.
That's been on his best behaviour. And I don't know how offensive you find this word in the States. I think in Britain we throw this word around quite a bit nowadays. I don't think it has that offence that it used to cause quite as much, but I'll go for it. So on one of the podcasts we asked, there was no saving my lesson when.
Right.
And one person said, and this is a year 2 child, so they would have been 6 or 7. So I'll start with your sentence. I couldn't believe that a kid, a year 2, called me a in the register. Then a stray cat walked in and he went after it, saying that it attacked his sister. I just think, what a start to your day as a teacher there. What a fantastic start. I kind of like to imagine that they happened like in unison. He called him what he called him, and then immediately after this cat walks in and he gets up and he's like, "Yeah, I attacked my sister." And I just think, where do you go from
and
there?
just ran out the door. Really threw off the whole Ofsted.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a good one. I enjoyed that one. I apologise. I mean, it's not my language; it's the language of a 6-year-old. So,
yes.
I kind of apologise.
Yes.
There.
That
was one of my favourite ones. I remember.
Yes.
Laughing.
That's wonderful.
Our audience just did hear a bleep, by the way. So that's
they were starts with a C.
Yes.
My bell ringing again.
My brother is a school teacher. He teaches in a what we call over here a PRU. It's children who've been permanently excluded from schools for their behaviour.
Right.
To school, all the really naughty kids, and they had Ofsted turn up one day. And you'll need your bleeper for this, I'm afraid, guys. But so I walked into class, and there was a group of 12 to 15 children sat there. And the first thing one of the kids said was, "Who the is this?" Right, that's the first thing he said to an Ofsted inspector. And then halfway through the lesson, two of the children stood up and said, "We're off for a smoke, Mr. Tomlinson." And he said, "Well, there's about 10 minutes to go in the lesson." They says, "Oh, we're off for a smoke." So they went out for a cigarette. And the Ofsted inspector looked at my brother and he said, "Well, are you going to do something about it?" So I best go and get them back. So he went down into the playground, and as he walked round the corner, these two boys are running back towards the school, run past my brother, and then all of a sudden this huge guy comes walking round the corner, and he said, "I need those two lads who've just run in your school." And my brother said, "I'm sorry, but you're on private property. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." He said, "They've just thrown stones at my car." And he said, my brother said, "I'm really sorry about that. You'll have to take that up with the police, but you're on private property and I'm going to have to ask you to leave." So he turned round and left. My brother walked back into the school, and as he walked in, a lady out of the office came out and she said, "You know who that is, don't you?" And he said, "No, is it?" She says, "He's the biggest drug dealer in the city."
Nice.
So my brother then had to go upstairs and kind of, try and calm these kids down with the Ofsted inspectors still stood in the corner observing what was going on.
So there's 900 problems happening all at the same time. You've got Ofsted there,
the same time, yeah.
Kids leaving out of class, and now the dangerous drug dealer wants to beat those kids up and come onto your campus. So there's
I think they got an outstanding at the end of it.
Then you go home. How was your day, honey?
How was your day?
And how old are these students?
They're high school age, so between 11 to 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought we were still dealing with elementary school. We're like, we're going out to grab a smoke. I'm like,
okay. All right.
I do apologize for swearing.
That's okay.
Usually you don't see that kind of maturity outside of a coal mine.
There you go. So Tedisco, do we have anything else, or do you have any more questions before we let them go here?
We have anything to start with.
What's that?
No, not that I could think of.
Okay. All right. We just want to say thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah, do you guys have any questions for us?
We'll think of those when we get you our podcast. Don't worry about that.
Okie dokie. Awesome. So thank you guys again.
The last thing is, so for everybody who loved hearing you guys come on, and I'm sure everybody did, where can they find you guys? Where's the best place to find you online?
We're on most podcast providers, so on Apple, on iTunes, if you just search Hands Up, or you can find us on Twitter @HandsUpPod.
Okay, awesome. So thanks again for coming on, guys. It was a blast. I'm going to hit stop on the recording here. We really appreciate you guys. Oh, and to all our listeners, stay unprofessional. Okay, unprofessionals, we hope you enjoyed that. And normally we're encouraging you to go out there and make us more famous. But really what we want you to do today is spread the word on those Hands Up guys. If you like them, listen to their podcast. There's a link in the show notes. Go find them. Listen to all their episodes. Follow them on the Twitter. Subscribe to their podcast. Share them with your friends. We just really like them and enjoyed having them and want to pump them up. Thank you again, and stay unprofessional.